Lee County, Illinois, they only have 2 to 3 houses per square mile. Like I said, I spent 6 to 8 hours counting every one. I went to every turbine because they have them on the map. You can find every one of these on Google Earth. In Keweenaw County and Door counties in Wisconsin, there's 2 to 3 houses per square mile. In Somerset County, Pennsylvania, there's 1 to 2 houses per mile, and these are all within the turbine clusters. This is where the turbines are placed, like we have out here. All these are the figures where the turbines are placed, and within that square mile that they're in, I counted houses, all right? Which I assume they did also. In this one, in Madison County and Oneida County in New York, there was only 1 cluster in 1 square mile, 1 house in the whole cluster of the entire square mile of 6 or 8 turbines. In this one from Walla Walla County and Benton in Oregon and Washington, there were 0 houses per square mile in the cluster. There were no houses within the turbine projects or even close, so it's no comparison to Landway. In Oklahoma and Custer County, there were 2 to 3 houses per square mile in the cluster. In Howard County, Texas, there were 0 houses in the cluster, 0 houses per square mile of the cluster. And there was 0 to 1 in Wayne County, Pennsylvania. In this study in Wayne County, Pennsylvania, all off the Berkeley Lab study. So what that basically does is what it comes down to is that basically Mr. Thayer's assessment of our township is right. We're agricultural, we're rural, and everything else. But we have 3 times as many.
3 times more.
3 times or more. Well, some square miles we have 14 houses, up to 14 houses per square mile, residential housing. But some of these had more, I admit that. There was one where it was funny on there, even on one of their pages here, as it shows, and there's a set of wind turbines, and there's a subdivision there, and I went down to that subdivision, and all those houses have been sold within the study time since the turbines have been placed. And they're all in a, $250,000 houses, basically, is my assessment, because I know that Google Earth is pretty accurate, because I can see the 3 ducks in my pond. When I go on Google Earth, they took the picture of my duck. So what it comes down to is what I'm saying about Mr. Thayer not doing his research, down to the nub. It comes to the Berkeley Lab Studies conclusions here. And so the Berkeley Lab Studies that they don't tout in here, this is off the Berkeley Lab, and this is what they gave us. It says, finally, although this work builds on existing literature, because they're saying there's no property value losses, in a number of respects, there remain a number of areas for further research. The primary goal of subsequent research should be to concentrate on homes located closest to the wind farms, where the least amount of data are available. Additional research of the nature reported in this paper could be pursued, but with a greater number of transactions, especially for homes particularly close to wind facilities. Further, it's conceivable that cumulative impacts might exist where communities that have seen repetitive development are affected uniquely, and these cumulative effects may be worth investigating. A more detailed analysis of sale volume impacts may also be fruitful, as would an assessment of potential impact wind facilities on the length of time houses are on the market in advance of an eventual site. Finally, it would also be useful to conduct a survey of those homeowners living close to existing facilities, especially those residents who have bought and sold homes in proximity to wind facility after facility construction, to assess their opinions on the impacts of wind project development in their homes and home purchase and sales decisions. So that's off the Berkeley Lab study, and that's what I said. So what I meant by that, Mr. Thayer didn't go, Dr. Thayer didn't go deep enough to find out how many houses per square mile here, but in his report, they didn't go to the houses closest to the wind facility, and they didn't take that into account because there's not enough information. So that comes down to this new wind report that came out March 3rd, and this is a comprehensive wind study also by Economics and Financial Studies School of Business at Clarkson University, March 3rd, 2011, by Martin Heinzelman and Kerry Tuttle, Values in Wind, Hedonic Analysis of Wind Power Facilities. And so what this does is this makes up for what the Berkeley Lab study in the home study is what they call. This goes and fills in those blanks that they mentioned in the conclusion. So in the conclusion it said they didn't. Well, these did all their studies within 5 miles, and 20% of their houses were within a mile and sold in between the year 2000 and 2009. So before the economy crashed in 2008, there was a number of houses done, because that's always another one that that the developers talk about. And here's the abstract on it. The siting of wind facilities is extremely controversial. This paper uses data on 11,369 property transactions over 9 years. Okay, so their study had 7,500 transactions all across the nation. This one was in northern New York to explore the effects on new wind facilities on property values. We use a repeat sales framework to control the admitted variables and the endogeneity biases. We find that the nearby wind facilities significantly reduce property values. Decreasing the distance to the nearest turbine to 1 mile results in a decline in the price between 7.73% and 14.8%. The results indicate that there remains a need to compensate local homeowners and communities for allowing wind development within their borders. Now, I go and you read on, and I just highlighted some of the stuff, and the township board needs to get a copy of this, I think, so that way they can see it. But it also talks about other reports that have been done, and according to this, they talked about 2 by Sims and Sims, that they showed that there was no property value, but they used small samples of homes. And then they talk about Home, which did the study for the Berkeley Lab, which also you have to realize, they say it's for the Department of Energy, the Berkeley Lab study, but it's also done by the Energy the Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy part, and it's done by the Wind Energy and Hydroelectric. So for it not to be, this one comes from a future doctor. She's not a doctor yet. The other one's an assistant professor, but this one is unbiased because it isn't paid for by the renewable energy and the wind development, wind and hydroelectric done with the Department of Energy. I mean, they always say it's from the Department of Energy, but when you read their article, it isn't. It's coming from the renewable energy in the wind development. And also Hone and the Berkeley Lab do a lot of studies for the renewable energy field. So it says about Ben Hone focused on wind turbine to collect data within 5 miles in Madison County, where some of these studies were done, but he only did 280 transactions spread over 9.5 years, and this is a study in 2006. But then it says, Hone also used a larger sample of 7,500 homes spread over 24 different regions across the country, from Washington to Texas to New York, that contained wind facilities, and again, found no significant effect. They took all transactions within 10 miles of facility and used a variety of approaches, including repeat sales. However, they limited themselves to discontinued measures of proximity based on having a turbine within 1 mile, between 1 and 5 miles, and outside 5 miles. So what they did is they took all the turbines. Yeah, they have one as close as 800 feet, but they have some as far as 10 miles away. Some are in cities. If you look at the map, some are inside cities that are 8 miles away, and they took those house sales, but they threw them all in the group. They didn't say, oh, this one's between 5 and 10 miles. This one isn't between 3 and 5. This isn't between 1. No, they're all, and so they took all that. So that's like saying the effects on 23, US 23 out there on our houses here, we take those into account for the noise and the traffic over there, and they don't take our houses and say they had no effect on their property values from 23. So that's the way I look at it. I know it's a different monster, but it's still similar. The noise effect, everything to that effect, how does that affect our property values? We're 10 miles away. If they put the turbines up by Tecumseh, how would that affect us? We're not quite Tecumseh, but whatever, Adrian, whatever, how would that affect us? Probably not as much as what it does to people inside the 1 mile. So, that's my own, subjective opinion on it. So, but then, also their data methodology. Our data consists of nearly a complete sample of 11,369 residential and agricultural property transactions in Clinton, Franklin, and Lewis counties from 2000 to 2009. Of these, there were 1,955 from Lewis, 3,255 from Franklin, and 6,159 from Clinton. Each observation constitutes an arm-length property scale in one of 3 counties between 2000 and 2009. Parcels that transacted more than once provided a greater likelihood of observing specific effects from the turbines on sales prior to and after the installation. In a total of 3,890 transactions occurred for 1,903 parcels that sold more than once during that study period. 1,903 sold more than once. All right, then we go here a little deeper. There's more stuff, and like you said, I think the township board needs a copy of each one of this. I know they're getting this, but they got their study and they have to go and cross-references. Here's another section. The wind results are also broadly consistent with intuition. At a block group level, the existence of wind turbines of between up to 1 to 3 miles away negatively impact property values between 15.6 and 31%, while having at least one turbine on a parcel reduces prices by 65%. The significance of this last result is surprising, given that only 3 parcels in our sample contain turbines at the time of sale and thus may be spurious. So they have one turbine on their property and the sale price was dropped by 65%. So if a farmer wants to sell that, more than likely, you know, they say it's spurious, but you could go and imagine that the farmer probably kept the lease on it. I mean, that's my opinion, that maybe they kept the lease. They don't go into detail on that. But if he kept the lease, it makes the ground less. Discussions and conclusions. The result to this study appear to indicate that the proximity to wind turbines does have a negative and significant impact on property values. And there's more on that. For a repeat sales model, we see the construction of wind turbines such as that given for a home. The nearest turbine is now only a half mile away, results in a 10.87% to 17.77% decline in sales pricing depending on the initial distance to the nearest turbine and the particular specification. For the average property in our sample that sells for $106,864, this implies a loss in value between $11,000 and $18,999. At a distance of a mile, about 20% of our sample, we see decline in values from 7.73 to 14.87%, resulting in losses for an average home between $8,261 to $15,891. Failing to properly control for selection effects, as in the block group fixed analysis, results in price decline that are about 35% higher than those estimated from the repeat sales model. Finally, this paper breaks with prior literature in finding any statistically significant property value impacts from wind facilities. We believe this stems from our empirical approach, which controls for omitted variables and endogeneity biases. Future studies which expand this sort of analysis to the wind and other renewable power facilities in other regions are imperative to understand the big picture of what will happen as these technologies grow in prominence. And that's it. So in this one, like I said, came out March 3rd, 2011. The home study was done in 2009, so this is the newest property value study, and it goes and takes the place of what they said needed to be done. This group of people went and took over that and found out within that close proximity to turbines is what that's all about. So that's the end of me. I did do a little figures on that, and in our area, if we go and we have 399 homes in our area, and median house value is, according to Mr. Thayer in the county, which, like I said, I don't have the local county, is $135,000, and that would drop at the 7.73% would drop the value to $125,000. If there was loss of the 14%, it would be $10,497 per house, and then the other one would, or that would be a loss of $10,497 at the 14.79%. That would the $135,000 average house median house value here would drop to $115,000 at the 14, and this is a 1 mile out, and that would be a loss of $20,193.46. So at 399 houses in the area, I mean, and it's not, it includes also, you know, it includes everybody, 399 houses, that's a loss of between $400,000 to $800,000 in property value losses from placing turbines within a mile of houses. If they all have a house within a mile. Right. And that would be for our area. Now, I understand that people tend to live here for 20 years, but the people that tend to leave in 2 to 3 years after they bought their house, or on top of it, you know, I understand farmers go and hand their property down here and there again, but also I plan on handing my house down to my son, and it'll be paid off. And for him to have the price and the property value decline by 20%, that's my son's future, or anybody else's future, just like it's the farmer's future with their land. It's no different that our future is equally as important as the future of the farmers and the leaseholders. I just want to point out